keep us on track. So good luck with that.
I don't know if I'm a good person to keep people on track. Like, I go off on tangents, like, on a regular basis. But if you do have a question that you want to ask Susan or Riley, please put it in the chat, and I will try and pay attention to that. So, welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So, is Riley there? Or did she like leave us?
No, she's still there. She just is being a little shy. Okay, somebody wants to know if anybody is coming to the Tucson Festival of Books.
We are not. I'm sure people are, but not Riley and I.
Not you two. Other people. Are you guys going to any signings? Like, I know you, Susan, had talked about going to Rare, but then you aren't going, and you were going, and there was like...
I have a ton of signings this year, actually. This weekend, I'm going to Nashville for a signing.
That'll be fun.
And then I'm going to Lexington. I'm going to Louisville twice. I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to Dallas, Fort Worth area. So, yeah, I'm everywhere. It's the COVID stuff catching up because all the events that were canceled are now rescheduled. So, and they're all...
Oh, so it's like,
yeah,
bam, bam, bam. Yeah. What about you, Riley? Are you doing any signings?
I will be in Louisville with Susan for one of those signings. I believe that's in July, right, Susan?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, knockout, it's in July. And then later in the year, I might be going to Washington for a signing, but that's still kind of being last minute worked out. So that'll be a surprise if that ever comes to fruition, but hopefully the Seattle area sometime September or October.
Okay. So I do have one person asking a question. So you guys did the Falling for the Delta novellas that you wrote together but separate. Are you ever going to be writing a book together, like co-writing, or do you foresee that never happening?
Never. No,
I would love to. One of the issues is that Riley generally writes in first person and I write in third person. So it makes it difficult to write a book together when you write in different persons. But
this is true. But Riley does have like her whole Gemini, like she switches from first to third. She goes back and forth. So
yeah. I could just make Riley do it my way because that's, how I roll.
You could.
Well, we did Falling for the Delta all in third.
Yes.
So Susan's being really nice and saying that I write to deadline. And Susan is so put together that she does not. I'm just kidding. I would love to write something with Susan, like serious fangirl here. Who would not want to write a book with Susan? Like Falling for the Delta was awesome, especially, the way we did it. We wrote 2 novellas that were separate but interconnecting. We got to brainstorm together and, I got to talk things out with her. It was so much fun. I had a great time writing that book with her.
It was fun to go back and forth and have someone to like bring ideas off on. What if we did this? What if we did this? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those 2 stories, like they coincided completely, like from start to finish. Like their timelines and everything were exactly the same. So I wondered how you guys did that.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yep. Hey, wasn't that my character's name?
I think it might have been, wasn't it?
I think it was Magic.
Yep. Yeah, it was. Exactly.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Her and I kind of brainstorming, figuring out, okay, where the book is going to start. And then 3 days later, this is going to happen, and making sure that everything aligned properly. And even like Susan and I going over text messages that the girls were going to send back and forth and kind of, figuring that out. So you saw it from one point of view and then the other person's point of view in their book. So.
Yes. So I do have one question. How did you guys meet?
How did we meet? Well, we met online. We didn't meet in person till that signing in DC, right? Wasn't that the first time we met in person?
Yeah.
We met online. I don't know if Riley messaged
You don't remember? That was like the best day of my life. And she doesn't remember.
I should just let you take this one. How did we meet, Riley?
So we met through Abby Sanders. Well, first of all, let me back up. I have been a Susan Stoker fan for a long time. Read all of her books. Huge fan of hers, and a mutual friend of ours, Abby Zander, fantastic author. She was writing in Susan's world, and Abby and I were friends. And she said, why don't you contact Susan and talk about writing? You're a fan. Talk about writing in Susan's world. And I said, no way. I am not going to contact Susan. And she's like, you are crazy. She is the nicest person. Just reach out to her. And I wouldn't do it. I was too scared. I would not reach out to Susan. So Abby actually reached out to Susan and told Susan about me. And the next thing I know, I get a message in my inbox. Hey, this is Susan. I slammed my laptop shut and jumped up and did a jig. I'm like, holy crap, that just happened. And then I messaged, I know, it's so funny. It's so embarrassing, kind of, but not really. So I messaged her back, and she was just as nice as Abby had said, and just as kind and helpful. And from there, it kind of, I started writing for Susan, and I had questions, and she walked me through everything. And I had a question one day about one of her characters in her book, and I was writing into mine and said, would there be any way that you could, I could call you so I can talk this out? And she said, sure. And she shot me over her phone number. I promptly wrote it down, taped it on my wall. It's still there to this day. And called her. Ultimate fangirl moment.
And now I can't get rid of her. So there.
I know. And now I just tag along.
No, that's, it's funny because I co-host a podcast, and my co-host had started it, and she's like, if you had any author that you wanted to have on, who would it be? And I so I named a couple. I was like, Susan Stoker, and actually you, Riley, are you guys are two of my go-to authors. I read everything that you guys write. But no, so Becky sent Susan an email, and she emailed back, and I honestly, I squealed. There was definite squealing.
Right.
And I was so excited.
Right.
Because I was like, this is one person who I would love to talk to.
And meanwhile, I'm sitting here in my pajamas, haven't taken a shower in 2 days. And
I fangirled just a little bit on the episode for the interview. I tried to bring it in, but it's hard to do that when you get to talk to somebody you really admire their work.
I was so nervous the first time I talked to her. I had so many questions, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is she going to think I'm a total dork if I ask these questions, or I don't know what I'm doing? And I was so nervous. And within 5 minutes of talking, it's just, so down to earth, so sweet.
You were like, wow, she's a big dork, really. So
I know. I'm like, we got this. It's fine.
But what I love about Riley is that she's a sponge. I mean, I'm not saying I have all the answers, because most days I feel like I have no answers, but we would listen, and she listened, and we would talk back and forth, and she took my suggestions and she ran with it, and she's been amazing. She's done great. And she's got I don't know how many books under her belt now, but yeah, she's got her own fan base, and it's fun. It's fun to watch her, and people discover her, and I love reading her books too. So yeah, there's that.
And I love getting Susan Stoker books way before anybody else. So that is a perk.
Oh, I'm sure.
And sometimes it's really hard. Annie just came out.
I know, it's so good. And
oh my gosh, right?
I was very fortunate to be able to read it early, but I couldn't talk about it.
I know. Isn't that the problem? Because I read that book so long ago that I'm like, I just want someone to talk to about it. And there's no one.
I know. Well, there's me. You can talk to me about it.
And then Susan's like, yeah, Annie comes out next week. And I'm like, what? Wasn't that a year ago? What are you talking about, Annie releases?
This is the curse of her working so far ahead.
It really is.
It
Because I
is.
can't tease readers either. I can't be like, hey guys, I finished a book today, but it doesn't come out for a year and a half. Sorry.
Well, but you do say that and people like lose their crap. They're like, oh my goodness.
It's harder to tease though, because it's not coming out for so long.
Well, and then I feel bad because there I am. I'm like, yeah, the book comes out in a year and a half, but I've read it. It's fantastic. And I'm like, please don't try to steal my laptop or my Kindle to try to get the advanced copy. Like, I don't want the hate mail coming to me, so I can't brag about it, but I really do want to, because
I usually tell people that they can be a stalker, but they just can't be a bush stalker. Like, I don't want to see you in my bushes. You can follow me on all my social media.
Okay, Riley, I have a question for you from the chat. It says, what was the inspiration for Nixon from Gemini Group?
So that whole series is based on the town I live in, the county I live in. And like the setting, Nixon Swagger, he comes home to his family farm. And so that whole farm is based on my husband's farm. And my husband left and kind of moved to Los Angeles and joined the Navy and went that route. And 20 years later, he came home. And when he came home, thankfully, I was in tow and he brought me. But so kind of it was loosely based.
So he is Nixon
Swagger. So
Swagger.
kind of loosely based on, him coming home, having to readjust to back to his, his childhood home, a small county, small town. Everybody talks. Everybody, anyone who lives in a small town understands how people talk.
Yes.
And really, it was just that was the inspiration for the series. And I will say I loved writing those books because they are geographically correct. Like when I talk about certain things, I drive past them every day. I mentioned a pizza place in there, Procolinos. I go there at least once a week. I talk about the Chester River. I cross that bridge every day. And so it was really fun to be able to kind of write a whole series of books based in the town I live in.
That's awesome.
And now come and stalk you because now we know where you
are. And you know where I am. I mean, every Friday night after basketball, Procolinos.
Okay, I just want to say hi to everybody who's popped in since we started. If you have a question for Susan or Riley, go ahead and type them in the chat and I will get them there. So, Susan, we talk about text and how text shows up everywhere. Is it hard for you to loan him out to other authors?
Not at all, because that's his personality. Like, I guess that's how I wrote him. Tex wants to help. And so I kind of like that people like using him. So I have a fan fiction world. So that's what we're talking about. So authors can use my characters in their story. And one of the characters they like to use all the time is Tex. And Tex is my computer guy. So anytime you need like a traffic camera looked at to track down a bad guy, or you need emails inspected or something like that, text usually gets brought in because he's handy. I mean, let's face it, it's just handy. So
he's multifaceted.
He is, and he wants to help. He's a former SEAL, and he takes his job seriously, helping other people. So yeah, if he wants to help other people's worlds, other people's series, and pop in, then I'm okay with that too. And he still pops in my books too, even 80 books later, every now and then.
I was going to say, he's a big facet.
Yeah, because he was in my very first series I wrote 6 years ago, and still sometimes need a computer guy. So he's really handy to have around for sure.
Yeah, everybody seems to say the same thing. They said Tex is the best. They love Tex.
Yeah.
Okay. Susan, here's a question. What series that you've written is your favorite and closest to your heart?
Oh, that's such a mean question. I don't really want, because I like all my guys. I like all my girls. Generally, all of the series I've written, I've been to most of the places. So Hawaii is one of my favorite places to go. New Mexico. I lived in Indiana for a while. There's a series set in Indianapolis. I lived in Colorado, so there's 2 series set in Colorado. So I kind of like Riley. It's fun to use some of the places you've been and some of the things that you've actually seen and throw them into your books. As far as a favorite series, gosh, I really don't have one. I really do like the Mercenaries. I love how it all ended up. I hadn't really planned all that, but the last book I think is one of my favorites because it's so emotional, and yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but yeah.
Yeah, that one, that's a spoiler right there. Like, you can't really say anything about it.
Careful about talking about.
And then they also want to know, do you have a favorite series of Riley's?
I love Riley's Red Team.
Oh, Zane Lewis. I love him.
Zane. Was it Violet's book? I was bawling. Sacrificed herself. Oh, good Lord. Yeah. Right, Riley? Am I right? Is that? Yeah.
Yep. Yes, Violet's book.
Yes. So anyway, I love Riley's. I love a book where I can get lost in and I don't have to worry about what, some people are like, I don't like first, I don't like third, I have to, whatever. I just like a book that I can get lost in. And I don't even think about what tense it's written in and all that when I read Riley's books. I just get sucked into the story. And she's really good about the military side of stuff too. I'm super vague. Riley's like, let's jump in here and get this military scene right, this fight scene. And I love that. So, because I'm not that way.
Okay, Riley, same question.
All right, I'm doing a happy dance. It's so awesome to hear.
You have to do the same question. Do you have a series of your own that is your favorite?
Well, it's like Susan. I mean, I think if you ask anybody this question that writes books, it's really hard because you kind of fall in love with the series with your character and the series you're writing. Like Gemini Group, obviously, because it's written in my hometown. That one, I absolutely love that series. But then I have to fall back to Red Team because that was the first series I wrote, and I love writing Zane, and does have a lot of military in there, which I love to write. I don't know. So I go back to Red Team, but then in Gold Team, I loved writing that series because I followed, those books are all based in Susan Stoker's, Susan Stoker, I say that so formal. Sorry, Susan's, like we don't know who Susan is. Those are based in her fan fiction world. So I get to use her characters and and in Gold Team, I actually used her characters, but I also followed her plot. So, and that was super fun to be able to do, pulling both in and kind of reading her book and then coming back and showing it in my book, but from a different person's point of view, a different perspective. So that was a lot of fun to write. Those were hard books to write. So they really challenged me because I had a lot of stuff to kind of pull in from Susan and get right. So yeah, it's hard to kind of name a favorite.
Now, do you have a favorite of Susan's?
I do, her Mercenaries.
Yeah, I do like her Mercenary series a lot also.
Yeah, that Allie's book, that I think as soon as I read that, I called Susan and I'm like, that is my hero. Like the chapter, it was chapter 1, right? They were on the ship, Susan. Am I remembering that correctly? Yep. The ocean. Yep.
Yeah, the ocean.
Yeah.
And
so the hero right off the bat takes control of the situation and gets down and dirty with some bad guys. And from that first chapter, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That series was supposed to be a lot grittier than it was. I was like, I'm going to make this series with these assassins and they go and they kill people. But I can't write a book where the heroes are assholes. I mean, I like that they're alpha. I like that they take charge, but I also want them to be nice, good people. So it kind of morphed a little bit, but yeah.
I mean, they do have their moments though.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Nina would like to know which heroine, for both of you, do you relate to the most?
Caroline.
Huh. That was like,
wow, that was quick.
It was quick. I mean, that was one of my first books, and that book sat mostly written on my computer for years before I published it. And I've said this before, and I think it's because Caroline's character feels invisible. She doesn't feel seen. And I feel like that a lot because I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not a supermodel. I'm, none of these things. And yet the seal in that story still saw her and fell in love with her because of her personality and how amazing she was. And so I think that resonates with me. And I think it resonates with a lot of people that, okay, there's hope that even though I might not be the prettiest, smartest, tallest, thinnest, whatever person in the world, that someone can still love me, kind of thing. And she was my first, so I guess there's that.
It's like that nostalgia type thing. How about you, Riley? Is there one of your heroines that you relate to the most, or is it just kind of a amalgamation of like all of them?
I think that I relate most to Ivy, because Ivy's backstory is kind of based on my life. So there's a lot of emotion in there with that book. So I think she was kind of cathartic for me to write. But I think that I kind of put bits and pieces of myself in all of my heroines. That might sound a little narcissistic or something, but it's just
no. Actually, I know a few authors that say that they do that.
Yeah,
it's hard not to, when I'm writing and having to think, how would someone react to the situation? And obviously, I know my feelings best, so I think I put a little bit of myself into all of my heroines, but Ivy for sure.
And I suppose we should say Caroline is from Protecting Caroline. Yes. So if anyone wants to look it up, should have said that.
And her hero is Wolf, who is just amazing and wonderful. And they show up throughout all of the series. Like they just keep popping up.
And then Ivy is which book?
Recovering. It's Recovering Ivy.
Recovering Ivy.
I just wanted to make sure we said the titles.
I happened to look behind me because it's on my bookshelf right behind me.
Recovering Ivy. Yeah, and I love, you're right. I think that first of all, those seals for Wolf and those guys, they show up throughout, some of Susan's books. But I think in her fan fiction world, those are our go-to guys. Like 8 books into writing in her world, and I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't used any of the deltas. Like, poor Texas guys. Like, why haven't I gone there yet? Because those characters are, for Susan Stoker fans, that's that's their go-to. Yeah, they're the OG. And we all, it all starts with Caroline and Wolf, and kind of goes through, from there. But even like Abe and those are our guys.
Okay, somebody wants to know, what are some books being released this year that you were excited for?
I'll go. I got, I'm in the middle of my Hawaii Seal series, which I love because it's mostly set in Hawaii, and it's awesome to be back in Hawaii, even if it's only in the pages of my book. But books 4 and 5 come out in that series this year, so I'm excited to go back and be back in Hawaii. But then I also start 2 new series this year, which I'm super excited about. My Search and Rescue series, Small Town, starts in next month. At the end of next month, with Searching for Lily. And Small Town.
Oh my God, that's so good. Sorry, I read that.
Virginia, based on Blacksburg, Virginia, without Virginia Tech, without the college. But so it's set at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and they're search and rescue, and they go out and find people who get lost. And it's small town, so you've got all the characters of a small town. They show up, the gossips, the jerk who owns the bar, and all these. And then in August, I have another new series, starting with Deserving Alaska, and that is called The Refuge, and it's set in New Mexico. My mom lives in Albuquerque, so it's set up near Los Alamos. And it's a bunch of guys who were former military got together because they were suffering from PTSD, and they opened a retreat for other people who suffer from PTSD, not just military, but anyone for any reason, where they can go and camp and kind of be on their own and whatever. So I'm excited to start 2 new series, but also be in the thick of my Hawaii SEAL series too.
Okay. How about you, Riley?
I am super excited to release several books this year. So, I mean, well, I'm excited to release them all, but I've got 8 more coming up. And I think for anyone that's read my Red, Gold, and Blue Team series, that series was supposed to finish in May with Cooper's book. The title's Cooper. And I'm really excited to write that book because his heroine is so freaking snarky and awesome and playful and fun. And I just feel like when these two kind of get together, it's gonna be dynamite. It's just,
well, and if you read Kevin, you got little bits of her.
Yes.
I loved her. I thought she was just going to be wonderful and amazing, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And then the series was supposed to kind of end there, and there was one character that's been dangling in the background, Garrett, and so Garrett's kind of my Tex. He's my computer guy. And so he's always kind of been in the background, and I was kind of thinking I'd write a novella for him at some point, just not sure when I would do it. And then I wrote Kevin's book, and this character Garrett's been on my mind for a long time now. So his book is finally coming out in December. And that one's going to be super emotional. So I'm kind of, preparing myself to write that one. So I'm really excited.
December. Man, I don't know if I can wait till December.
Well, in March, the end of March, book 3 in Take Back comes back. So Dangerous Games. And then in April, Triple Canopy book 6 Conquered comes out. May, you've got Cooper.
That one's going to be really good. Dylan and Soul, Dylan, I feel like is going to break us in so many ways.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sawyer that's gonna break some readers. I think it'll be Sawyer. And then we've got Cooper in May, and book 4 in Take Back comes out in July. And then finally the Kent brothers, if you've read Triple Canopy, one of my heroines, Shiloh, she is a bad bootied.
I think you can say it.
She is a badass SWAT team member, and she is kind of doesn't take crap from anybody. And she's got 3 older brothers that have kind of, I feel like they kind of molded her personality, and as well as, her past. But she has 3 brothers, and one of them I stuck over into Take Back. So River went to Take Back and met his heroine over there.
Yeah, he's book 2.
He's book 2. So that was Dangerous Rescue. And now in Triple Canopy, books 7 and 8, so that'll be Shattered and Fractured, will be the last 2 Kent brothers. So there's
so many good things coming.
I know. I can't wait. And then October, we go back to Take Back for book 5. And then December, we'll get Garrett. So there's a lot of good stuff between now and December. But Garrett, for fans of the Red, Gold, and Blue teams, I think
that's the thing. I think we've been waiting for Garrett's book since Night Stalker came out, because he's always been in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of giving hints. And he was never meant to get a book. He was just a kind of a throwaway character. He wasn't ever going to get one. But then the more he kind of started showing up, and I think really when he showed up a little bit more in the Gold team, and I think that was the first time in one of those books. I honestly cannot remember, but I know he had a point of view in one of those books, and from there I was like, oh, yeah, he needs a book.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so somebody wants to know, as a writer, do you feel saturation and a need to step back, or is it comfortable to stay in a specific lane?
Lane.
Yeah.
I personally, I love what I write. And I think a lot of authors start writing because they're like, this genre is hot. Let me write something in this, but they don't love it. Like it's not their passion. So then they get bored with it and want to do something different. Whereas I started out writing what I love. I mean, I love what I write and imagine ever writing something different. So I want to stay in my lane because I like to write what I like to read. So
yeah, I feel the exact same way. I love romantic suspense. I love military romance. So I don't ever want to leave. I am where I am because I love to write what I read.
Wow. And you both write it very well. So I think that it
you.
works out perfectly then. Okay, so somebody says they love the Gold Team after reading Susan's and then seeing Riley's character's point of view. And then somebody else is asking, she said, for Susan, I love that you tell what happens in the future, but why give Caroline Alzheimer?
Oh God, people are still mad at me about that.
A little salty about it.
They are. I've had people email me and say they regretted reading that story. So Caroline and Wolf, we've talked about it, were my OGs, were the first book I wrote. I also get crap because Caroline and Wolf never had children. I feel like I really want to give everybody there's all sorts of ways to have a happily ever after. And for them, they didn't want children. And that was okay. And that's okay in real life for people not to want children. Anyway, I think Caroline came from my heart as well. So my husband and I do not have children. So that's where that came from. And I was thinking one day, we don't have children to look after us when we get old. Like we're it. And so what happens if something happens to my husband or I? We have to look after each other. And so I really saw that as the ultimate love story, that even after all these times, Wolf is still is still protecting Caroline. Their book was called Protecting Caroline. We all have to die. I guess we don't like to think about it. So yeah, I wrote that short story, and to me, it showed the ultimate true love. And I mean, let's face it, our characters are eventually going to die. I mean, we're all going to die. So I just thought it was a sweet way to show that Wolf was still protecting Caroline after all these years. So, yeah.
And I want to go on the record as saying, I agree. That book, I cried my eyes out. Ugly, ugly tears. I cried my eyes out. But I thought I thought it was perfect.
Yeah. And that book, it's called The Boardwalk, by the way, and it's in my little anthology of short stories called A Moment in Time. But yeah, people pretty much, I think, either love or hate that story. So, and I get it, they're the original couple, and no one wants to see them die. But then again, everyone wants second generation and third generation books, which means the original people get old, and I don't like thinking about that either.
Yes.
So you can't have it both ways.
I think part of it though too is like Caroline and Wolf are like these two, like they're almost these two entities that like aren't really real in a sense, and like you giving her this real issue, like it made them human.
Yeah.
And so people like they resonate with that. It's like, I love these characters, like they've been such a big part of my life, but they're human in this sense.
People like to escape as well. Actually, interesting. I just had that short story book translated into French, and my translator emailed me and she said, I don't usually do this. I've read over 400 books that I've translated, and I've never cried until now. So even in French, I've got people. So yeah.
Okay, we have a comment that says, I love how Ivy can put Zane in his lane. She's such a perfect heroine for him. I just adore her. And then another one for you, Riley. Was it hard to retire the 707 OGs? There's a lot of O's in that statement.
There is a lot of O's. It's going to be hard. So I have the 707 series. It is a 4-book series, freeing Jasper, Finally Free, and Freedom. And I wrote those 4 books I loved them. And those 4 couples decided to reproduce like nobody's business. They were just popping out kids left and right.
Especially Jasper.
Right? Well, Jasper had to have all those girls. I just could not picture gruff Jasper with his horrific past not having a bunch of baby girls. So I gave him a bunch of baby girls, and then I finished that series, and I kind of ended it. I was just going to end it with getting kind of a glimpse into the future. And then I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I wrote The Next Generation and gave, all the kids their stories. And then from there, I still wasn't done. Like, I felt like Jasper and Levi and Lennox and Clark still had some more kind of wisdom to give, especially Jasper. He's got a big mouth and he's nosy. He gets into everybody's business, but
he does. But honestly, one thing I love about Jasper is the way he is with his girls. Like, he is this gruff, grumpy, like intense guy, but he melts when his girls are involved, and he feels so hard. And I think that's one thing about his character. He's honestly, I love Zane, but separating the 2 series, like, I love Jasper Walker and I love Zane Lewis. Like, those are my 2 like Riley Edwards heroes that like I can't like stop talking about. But there's just something about the way he is with his kids and the way he loves their partners as well.
Mm-hmm. I love that about, writing him and staying in that world is, I think for me, the 707, The Next Generation, and then that spins off again, of course, because I couldn't let these characters go into Triple Canopy, is that, if nothing else, that whole series is about family. That's it. Bottom line, whether it's your biological family or it's the people who come into your life and you make them your family. And I really love, writing that into that series. Is, yes, I write teams of guys. All of my series are based on a team of guys, and then they get their heroines come in, and yes, you've got, the girl gang and you've got the guys, and I want to show those friendships and how they do mend together as a family. But I think really the Next Generation and 707 and Triple Canopy, I think that it takes that to a new level. And it's when Jasper Walker's involved, you are family. Like, his son-in-law took his last name. Brady had a really bad childhood, didn't want to pass on his didn't want to get married, wanted the last name to die, had some serious problems, and he became a Walker.
Well, and one thing I really liked is at the end of the 2nd gen books, like right like before the first Triple Canopy book, how like Jasper said, like they're talking about like retiring, but Jasper says like he needs to stick around because Hurricane Addie is like out. And like he is there to support her. He's not there to stop her. And I think that's one thing with Jasper is he has raised these amazingly strong females who like they dig in and don't let go. Like when they like find what they want.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate you saying that, because I really try so hard to make Jasper kind of supportive. He's there to just make sure that everything's okay. Just, give him a bump up instead of being that gruff, super strict dad.
Yeah, anytime there's a wedding, he just like falls apart, and I just love it so much. Okay, Susan, I have someone who says, I love the boardwalk, and I am one who does not like sad endings. I found beauty in their end. I cried horribly, but did love the read.
Yay. I cried when I wrote it, if that makes anybody feel any better. I don't know.
You don't often cry when you write scenes, do you, Susan?
No.
Yeah,
because I think we're involved. I guess I'm thinking ahead what's going to happen. I did cry in Mackenzie though too when I wrote that scene in Justice for Me. I did cry in that one too, I have to admit. So yeah.
Okay, somebody else wants to know, do either one of you, for either of you, what was your favorite marriage proposal in your writing?
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Most of the time,
I've written so many of them.
All my characters are like, we're getting married.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of proposals. It's more like, let's go do this.
Right. Like
there's no options.
Yeah, they both kind of know they're just doing it and let's go. And okay, we're going.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm really trying to think hard, and I'm coming to the realization I write a lot of marriage proposals when sex is involved.
Right, they're in the middle of sex.
I think that like
it's not even like a proposal though. They're like in the moment, and it's like, you're gonna marry me, and it's like, there's no questions. It's just statement of fact.
Because they're so in love that it's like, okay, we're doing this. Yeah.
No, there we go.
Yeah, I can't remember any good ones.
I guess we need to write a good one now, right?
I know. Now I'm feeling a little insecure, like I've never written a memorable one.
Way to go, Leah. Way to make us. Who asked?
Hey, it wasn't.
I know. It wasn't me.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was asking from the chat. Okay. Somebody else said, I cry every time I read the Mackenzie scene. So amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty.
Okay. So
I think that would make an amazing movie. Like, I can just picture that scene in my head and how emotional it would be. And he's sitting at the computers and yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. So we see Tex everywhere. Are we ever going to have Zane Lewis show up anywhere else? Like in a Susan book, perhaps?
You never know. He might and come and kick people's butts and then leave.
He might.
Like a whirlwind and then leave and people be like, what was that? That was
be super sarcastic and pass out condoms.
I was going to say, is the prophylactic fund?
Yep.
Okay. Maybe proposal was amazing. So real life. That was what somebody said. I don't remember Brooks.
That must be Christine.
I don't remember Brooks's proposal.
Is that Christine?
I don't know. I don't have any names.
Oh. I feel like that would be Christine. I love Christine. She likes that book, Brooke.
Somebody else says she loves Brooks's proposal also.
So oh my gosh.
I'm going to have to reread his book now because I don't remember it.
So am I. Oh my gosh.
It's the CRS that us authors have. Can't remember shit. We write like, what? I don't even know. Like, I had someone when I wrote Protecting Summer and someone said, is Beth going to get a book? And all I remember thinking was, who the hell is Beth? Like, I had no idea. And then I had to look it up and I was like, oh, that's the girl that was kidnapped with my main character. So I had her move to Texas and I gave her her own book. But usually I'm like, yeah, who? What? I wrote someone with that name.
Okay, they're saying Brooks's proposal was super funny.
Still,
if that helps.
Still not ringing any bells. Oh, terrible.
I'll be searching.
I know.
I'll do the Kindle search tonight.
As soon as we hang.
So, Susan, you have... she kept interrupting him. He's like, I'm blanking because there's asterisks trying to ask you to marry me. Okay, I remember now.
Do you?
I do. It was
Riley. Just say, yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that, right?
Yeah.
She said, are you breaking up with me?
Oh, I do. Okay, no. Seriously, I'm not bullshitting or BSing. I'm sorry. Gosh, my potty mouth. I do remember that now.
Yeah, I do too. I just need somebody to like make it nudge me. Yes.
Nudging.
Okay. So, Riley, is Vaughn going to get a book or a novella or anything from Gemini? Because I actually have seen little hints here and there, but no definitive answers.
Yes, he is going to get a novella. So I end Gemini group and I had Vaughn was, I think I tell you, he marries Penny. And, right?
Yeah, in the epilogue of Johnny's book.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay, so.
Or maybe they're not married, but they are together.
They're together. And I have them move away from Maryland. So Vaughn came back from war, and he had PTSD and a lot of stuff going on. And I wasn't kind of ready for him to have his own book and didn't know who he would be with. And then I had Penny, who kind of came into the series midway, and she's a rock star. And I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to put those two together because he's so by himself. He's a loner. He just wants to go home and kind of stay by himself. He only pops in here and there. And I felt like, you know, he needed someone who was kind of super outgoing, great outlook on life. And then Penny needs someone to ground her. So I put those two together, and yes, I will be writing a novella for them. And
you know who needs a book, Riley? That one mysterious guy who helps that girl.
Yeah, that one. You know, Susan always tells me.
What was his name? Tim?
Oh, you did not.
Tim.
You did not.
Tim.
I did.
No,
we're breaking up.
Tim totally needs a book.
Needs a book because he was
Susan?
So mysterious, and he was a bad guy.
He is.
Yeah.
He like swoops in and then disappears.
He was not a bad guy. Like, you think he's a bad guy, but then at the end, he's not a bad guy. And now I'm like,
Susan, we're breaking up.
I want to know more about him. So yeah,
you are not the only one.
See, that's my vote. Tim needs a book.
I agree. Maybe he'll show up in Triple Canopy. Maybe he'll like venture down.
He was all mysterious. He's working for the feds. He's doing something.
I mean, there's always space in Take Back. They can always there's always room for one more.
Right.
You know, Susan has given me like so many tips and tricks, and she's a wealth of knowledge. And I seriously, here's the God's honest truth. I would not have made it another year writing without Susan's help. It was just, she's instrumental in getting me where I'm at and writing these books, and really helps me. And the one thing she says is never, ever mention a character and give them any sort of role unless you plan on writing them. And
yep. And you named him. And you made him.
That's the thing. You gave him a name. That was the worst part.
Christine, if he was just a goon, no one would care. But he was a goon. But then all of a sudden, he wasn't just a goon. He was helping her.
That's
true.
He
was like a good guy goon. So yeah,
it is your own fault. Okay, so we have a question, Riley. Was it hard to write Adeline's backstory and explore the side of abuse?
Yes. It was. So Adeline had a abusive ex, and I don't give too much away in that book. I mean, you know what's happening. It's not on the page. It's not, she doesn't even have any recollections of the actual violence. She does say what happens, but she doesn't get into detail. And it was because I had to write a character who had been assaulted, but she also was extremely close to her family. She has loving sisters. She has a big brother. She's got an awesome dad. And so why didn't she go to them? Why didn't she ask for help? And I think that was the hard part, is having to sit back and really think about the whys. And for me, that was kind of heartbreaking, that there are reasons why someone doesn't want to come forward. Someone doesn't want to, go to the police right away or go to their family. And so that was hard to write. Yes.
So Susan, we had Annie come out. She was a much loved character throughout the whole Delta series. And I personally adored her character. And I like that book. I thought it resonated really well. It was like the perfect fan service. But it works so well, because I feel like there are occasions where you look forward to a character's book and you don't always get what you want.
Right. And kids are tricky, because I think anytime you introduce a kid in a story, they're cute. And I think people will want that story. Like Riley was saying earlier, if you name somebody, the fans are going to want to see him. And Annie was first introduced in Rescuing Emily, and she was 7 or 6, and she was precocious and she was cute. And then she kind of hung around in the rest of the series. And I don't usually write next generation books. 1, because I can't keep everyone straight. 2, I don't want the original characters to be old. But I couldn't not write Annie's story, because Annie had wanted to be a soldier from the get-go when she was little, and she grew up with her Delta Force stepfather and quote uncles. And so, yeah, I thought, how do I write her book, do her justice? Because you're right. I mean, everybody wanted her story from the get-go, and I was terrified to mess it up. And I'm sure, like with any book, some people didn't like that it didn't have as much sex. It didn't.
Yes, let's talk about writing Annie's sex.
That would be weird. Would that be weird?
That was the thing. She was 7, and so she was still kind of 7 in my mind. I was like, I can't write. So I wrote closed door sex or fade to black is what I did for them. And but yeah, I think generally overall the reception has been really positive, and that book was a little sappier than my other books, because they start out engaged and in love. Most of the time, that's not how us romance authors start books out, because part of the meeting and getting to know you, that's all part of the journey in the books. And so they already had that. So I had to figure out how to write a book where it started out with the 2 main people already in love. So, yeah. But I liked writing it. I'm glad I did it, even though it was hard. I'm still glad I gave.
I'm glad you did too, because Frankie, come on.
Oh my gosh.
We cannot forget Frankie. So Annie is the main, everyone always talks about Annie, and I'm like, what about Frankie? He has been there.
Yeah.
Through all of it. Like, Frankie.
And he was 100% supportive. He didn't care that he was a house husband. He didn't care that he had to move around, because let's face it, a lot of the books are about the men in the military and how the women just follow them around and they support them and all that. And that's great. But there's also men who follow their women military spouses around.
That was one thing I loved about it, is you got that other side to it.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I thought was really, really well received and needed.
Yeah. Because Annie's so kick butt.
She was, yes. Let's see. We have somebody who says they love Fletch. I love Annie, and it was a perfect story for her and Frankie. And then I love Fiona and Cookie's story. It was perfect. I love Julie's story, her redemption, and her HEA, but I still hold a grudge.
Yeah, Julie was one of those characters too, where she wasn't supposed to get a book. I wrote her, and she was awful in protecting Fiona. She was terrible. She was like, that's not this throwaway character, but kind of throwaway. And then we decided to write her book. I sat down and I was rereading Fiona, and I was like, well, how am I going to spin that? She was terrible.
She was kind of the worst, but
but then writing her book, I gave her reasons why she was that way, and she apologized, and she was genuinely sorry, and she was trying to make up for it. And so I think there's something to be said for having a little grace and forgiveness in there too. But yeah, that was tough.
I personally, I like a book where you have like that anti-hero, the anti-heroine, where you come in and you're like, how is an author going to take this character that I despise and really give her or him like that happily ever after and redeem them?
Well, and with women, it's even especially hard, because women are really hard on women heroines. Like they don't like when they're abrasive or outspoken or any of those things. They want them to be nice, and they want them to love their hero and all the stuff. And so if you step outside that box for the readers, you really gotta, sometimes it's a struggle to get your readers to like them, simply because women are really hard on other women.
And I have a comment here that says, and Ava got her redemption in the gold team with Max. So the redemption is amazing.
Yeah, so Ava was a character in one of my books too. So she actually, in Securing Zoe, she was the one driving the plane that kidnapped the hero and heroine and left them out in the middle of nowhere. And then Riley took her and redeemed her, which I love.
Just took her.
She took her. She wrote her story and redeemed her. And so,
I took her.
Yeah, that was tough too.
Yeah, that was really hard to come up, because Susan's book was already out. Everybody loved, that book and Zoe. And so now I had to take a bad guy from someone who tried to harm Zoe and Bubba, and that's her hero, right? Okay, yes. Perfect. And
how are you going to make people like her?
Right. How am I after, she tried to do something very bad to these people. And so it was, but there was something about her when I read Securing Zoe that really, there was something there that hit me. So I took her and, redeemed her, hopefully. Did a good job.
This person says, Eva was easier to accept than Julia. It was easier to see her reasoning because of the kids. I feel like kids, like when you add them into the mix, it totally changes the narrative.
Yeah.
So we are out of time because they told us about a half hour to 45 minutes and we are hitting 56 minutes now. So thank you again to Likewise for having us on this chat. And thank you, Susan and Riley, for chatting with me tonight.
Awesome. I appreciate everyone who's here, all 536 of you. You guys are all amazing. Thank you. And if you haven't...
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Check us out. I've got 4 free books on all the platforms, so you can find my books and see if you like what I write. And if you like those, you'll probably like all of my books because I same way.
Yep. And I have Nixon's book is free on all the platforms. That's book 1 of my Gemini series.
Nixon's Promise, right?
Nixon's Promise, yes. And so the Gemini group is on all platforms, and Take Back is available on all platforms, and the rest of my books, including the one in Susan's World, are all in KU.
Okay. Well, everybody's saying thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah, for keeping us on track too.
Well, I tried. I'm not the best at that because we like to veer and go this way, but it was a pleasure as always speaking with you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Be good. Be kind on all that stuff.
Yes. Bye. Thank you, Leah.
Bye.
Thank you.